I think the most important thing is to get out of your comfort zone. And I was kind of still being in my comfort zone because I felt like, yeah, I need to protect myself from being disappointed, from having negative experiences with other people. So I was kind of building like this wall around me where nobody was allowed to enter because, I was trying to protect myself.
Welcome to The Climb, where I help Christian men live fully, lead boldly, and leave a legacy that matters. I'm your host, Teko Bailey, husband, father, life coach, and your guide in the climb. Whether you're navigating fatherhood, building a business, or simply longing to live more purpose, this is the space to rise. Hey, Konrad, it is so good to have you here on The Climb. It's an honor to have you. How is your day?
Thank you, Tico. I'm very honored to be here on the podcast. And I had a very beautiful day. I went for a swim. I was with friends, and the weather was beautiful here in Germany. It was amazing.
What
It's
parts of
summertime.
Germany? What part?
I'm in the southwest of Germany in a beautiful city called Heidelberg. You should come and visit.
Wow, I
It's
have
worth
to.
it.
I have to. Well, I'll say wie geht's to all my Deutsch listeners. Danke. Konrad, we've talked a lot outside of The Climb, and it's good having you here. I know your background is in the medical field as a doctor, but if you want to share with us a little bit about your journey in The Climb, what that was like for you, and how we could even learn from some of that.
Thank you. I'd like to share more about how I developed my own character or personality, and that journey started many, many years ago. If you ask my family or my closest friends that have known me from my early childhood, would say that I've been a different person back then compared to the situation now. And what happened in between is something that I'd like to share.
Yes, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'd like to start with the time when I was in my first year of med school, and that was about 2010, 11. I was having a really hard and challenging time back then because, when I entered med school, I was, different person. Being an introvert, really passive. I didn't like to have social interactions, very being in myself, not sharing many things that were going on inside of me. I didn't have many friends because I left my hometown for studies, and so I moved to a different city. I had no friends there, and I was really lonely actually, and
Yeah.
isolated. So that was the situation that I was facing back then, and I was for some reason really unable to get in touch with other people, and I was very shy and somehow very nervous anytime that I got in touch with other people. And so I felt like it was really holding me back from something. I didn't feel comfortable, I didn't feel free, I had a very low self-esteem, and that really bothered me. It was a kind of working inside of me, but I couldn't get out of that situation. So that kind of led me being in my isolation, more in like kind of depressive mode or mindset, where I was like, who does even care about me? Like,
Yeah.
there actually someone, I mean, I was having a few friends, but they were like somewhere all over the place,
Yeah.
all over Germany. So I was really longing for people that were close to me in the city where I used to live back then. And that was actually a very challenging time to me. And I, almost had no clue how to get out of it.
Wow. So, as an introvertish type of person, as you might describe yourself, moving from a place that you're familiar with increased the pressure on you to connect with people, communicate, and feel at home. What were some of the biggest internal challenges you were having? And how do I even get out of this mode to reach out to people and explain what your needs were? How did you navigate some of those internal challenges?
Yeah, as I started my studies in university, I was feeling like, wow, everyone around me is connecting with each other, like building friendships. I was like, how do these people actually do that? So I really, yeah, I was doubting myself, because when I moved to that city, I was really motivated. I was very interested. Into yeah, starting that new chapter of my life. But soon I realized, okay, it's not that easy. And yeah, if I don't find friends or close people, then I would actually, yeah, kind of,
Fade
yeah,
away.
me else. I think because I was having like this low self-esteem, I was like, actually, no one's gonna be interested in like getting in touch with me, yeah, building friendships. And so that was actually just, um, yeah, my self esteem got even lower because of that.
Wow.
That was like a circle that led to even more isolation, even lower self esteem, because obviously I wasn't able to do something and I felt like,
Pull yourself out of it by yourself.
yes, that wasn't possible. There were some, I really tried, and I tried to, yeah, manage a few interactions and connections somewhere, but it was more like a superficial kind of thing. I didn't really feel like, okay, there's actually someone who has a high interest in me. And I was having so many questions in myself that I wanted to um, yeah, kind of work with. And you need someone who can like hold a mirror in front
Yeah,
of you
yeah,
when you're kind of trying to know or get to know yourself better and
yeah.
know what is actually inside of me and what is the potential that has God or whatever you say put
Mhm.
inside me. So this is actually like I think one of the crucial questions a man need to answer during like navigating this whole manhood thing. And
Yes.
yeah, so that was a big problem for me because I had no one to talk that through, to be like the opposite who could actually tell me or like reflect on the things that I was thinking about myself.
How did you get from where you were to where you are now? And especially in that time, because I do believe, there are others maybe in that season of life, whether it's a university or a new job or something new that they've entered in. And it is true, when you envision what the thing might be like, moving from where you are with friends and relationships that you're so used to into a new environment, there's so many things that shift and changes that you don't necessarily expect, or maybe just underestimate the significance of what not having those relationships might be. What were some of the things that helped you in that time to get to where you needed to be?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is to get out of your comfort zone. And I was kind of still being in my comfort zone because I felt like, yeah, I need to protect myself from being disappointed, from like having negative experiences with other people. So I was kind of building like this
Yeah.
wall around me where nobody was allowed to enter because, yeah, I was trying to protect myself. But yeah, a few things happened that actually kind of pushed me out of that wall. And it wasn't actually, and it was not myself who kind of started that process, but there were a few things happening. Like I was looking for a community of students because another close person to me like recommended to go there. First of all, it was like a big thing for me to go there because I felt like I've no clue what they're doing there. It's another new situation and it's really uncomfortable for me. But then I decided to go there and yeah, actually it was a good experience because they were like a really warm and welcoming group of people. And I felt comfortable there from the first meeting on. I was like, okay, this is good. I want to stick with a group. But for some reason, the group shrank after I entered the group. I have no idea how that happened. But
Oh,
in the end, it was just another girl and myself. And we were like, yeah, what next? Should we just quit everything? or should we try to rebuild the group? So
Yes.
and we guys were like, okay, actually, this group has a value and worth for us especially, and it can also be very helpful for others. So we decided to continue and get some help from other groups from other cities. And I think that was the time when God stepped into this process and got me out of that comfort zone. Because before that time, I didn't thought that I could be a leader. I was more like a passive follower, and I was not willing to take on responsibility for anything because, I was passive, I was inactive, I was an introvert. But then I was kind of forced to, yeah, take on responsibility and kind of rebuild that group or help rebuilding that group. Yeah, without even knowing that or being aware of what actually happened, I kind of became a leader. I had the leadership role of that group, and so that kind of shifted um, my strategies, how I got into touch with other people, how I got to know them. Like my whole social interaction kind of changed,
Shifted.
and
Yeah.
it shifted from being very inactive to being very active because yeah, that was now like my role, my task in order to get this group rolling. And yeah,
So
so
you shifted from being this introverted type person, needing relationships, needing support, joining this group where you felt like, yes, finally, I'm in this place that I'm gonna get everything I need. It dissolves, and then here you are in the midst of everything, wondering what to do next. And out of that, this new role is taken on by yourself to say, hey, you know what, let me be the change I want to see.
exactly. Yes. And it is like God kind of took this wall that I kind of built around myself and kind of like smashed everything down. And
Yes,
he kind of like pushed me forward and told me like, okay, boy, now you can do it. Just do something
that's
and
right. It's
I'm
in
gonna
you.
lead you in this process. So it was like jumping into ice cold water and trying to swim, but actually that was what I needed. So
Yeah,
stepping out of my comfort zone and doing something that I was like, that was actually frightened to do before, and because I didn't have the courage to do that, but God had the courage to push me forward, and
that's
he
right.
and he saw
That's
things
right.
in me that I didn't see before. So that was, I think, actually the one of the turning points. And I actually learned a lot more about myself, about things that were like living inside of me, but I didn't try to even explore what was there in my personality and what was kind of still sleeping somewhere, but God kind of yeah uh, got these parts of my personality awake. And I realized that I really love to get in touch with people, and I realized that I have an interest to get to know these people better. What is
Yes.
your character? What is your passion? What is the story that you can tell? Because I figured out that every person, like each person you meet, has a story or has a nugget that they can share, and we can learn from each other, and it's so
So
important, and
good.
it's so valuable to get to know that. So that was like some idea that was forming in my head or in my personality that really kept me moving, because I felt like, wow, this is a new thing that really um, keeps me going. And I felt joy when I met other people. So that was also something new, because before I felt like more emotions like being uncomfortable, being
Yeah.
really insecure, wanting to get out of this social interaction situation. But then I felt like, wow, I can really feel the joy of meeting that person. I was really happy to meet that person, and I felt, wow, this joy, it's not coming out of myself, but it's a gift that God has placed in my heart in order to give it to others. Yeah, build some relationships, build friendships. And then another thing happened. No, let me tell different. There was a student at med school that like everyone loved. He was kind of always in a crowd of other people. And I was like,
Yeah.
what is so special about that guy?
Yeah.
I couldn't figure that out. Um, I kind of I had the wish to um, yeah, become friends with him, but I was like, oh no, he has so many friends. There's no chance for me as an introvert, as this passive person, to actually, yeah, being friends with that guy.
Yeah.
And then one day, he kind of um, he kind of took the seat next to me at med school, and he started talking to me. And then we figured out, okay, we really, yeah, shared some interests. We kind of really get along with each other. And so this was the start of that friendship. And it was like, wow, okay, that was actually so easy.
Yeah.
So like this is another gift that you have given to me, and then from that day on, like friendships were building and social interactions were growing, and so that was such an amazing turn of that
It
story.
sounds to me like fear is one of the factors that prevent us from stepping into new territory
Exactly.
and experiencing another version of ourselves or growing into a more mature version, or if you want to say a more expanded version of who we are. But yet there's this fear that speaks to you even before you know what the outcome is, that it's like, no, that is not for me, or this is not going to work, or this is impossible, because oftentimes we see ourselves as a certain person, a certain image, and so we limit ourselves just to that version of who we think we are. And maybe in the midst of that, God is saying, no, you are more than this. And I want to use you to, in essence, bring life wherever you go and encourage others to do the same. At least I hear a little bit of that in your story. How do you use that to encourage others who are maybe finding themselves in a similar way or path that you've been through? And how has this experience help you to kind of speak to others and help them as they're going through different challenges in life?
Yeah, first of all, the lesson that I learned from that story was that I can be a leader if I just take on responsibility and fill in the gap that is somewhere. And if I step out of my comfort zone, I can actually overcome my challenges and my fears. And with the help of God, I can actually grow even more than I could expect in myself. So this is something that I would tell every man who is struggling with insecurities or fears, low self-esteem, just put all those lies away, because these are lies that are trying to stop you and to prevent you from, yeah, and living the life that you're meant to live as a man. And I want to encourage you to step out of your comfort zone and take on responsibility, whatever it takes. Yeah, there are many other like men also around you who can help to get into this process. And
Space. Yeah.
yeah, and also just tell God your challenges, your insecurities, and I'm pretty sure that He has a plan for you to grow and to get into this new role, man, or this place where he wants you to be. There's probably way more inside of you that you could even than you could even imagine.
I find it, I
Bold.
find it, I find it interesting that you have the courage to pursue med school, but yet in another area of life, you find it difficult to push through and pursue other things that you think, maybe you can't do this. But yet for another person, even for me, I'm like, whoa, med school, that's a lot of work. Maybe that's not for me. And I wonder if sometimes it has to do with the environment that we grow up in, or the exposure that we've had, or just in general, the people and relationships that's been around us that causes us to limit ourselves on what we think we can do and who we think we can become. Do you think that plays any factor into how people see themselves? And if so, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there are different areas where we can have probably higher self-esteem and a lower self-esteem. And I think probably this is just a stereotype that I'm kind of talking about. Usually, men tend to be more convinced that they can handle their profession, whatever it is, their job, and they tend to be very active, proactive, in order to become better. And probably they are a little bit also trying to challenge themselves or others. But there are other fields in life where it's probably harder for men to be successful. And those can be things like relationships or families or even just, general social interactions. I think, you need to think twice if you approach this problem. Um, and yeah, I think we need to be bolder when it comes to relationships, interactions, because it has a lot to do with communication, with opening yourself, probably talking about emotions or whatever. And that can be sometimes hard if you haven't learned it.
Scary.
Yeah, it can be even scary. Like for myself, I didn't learn about like talking about my emotions when I was a kid, and that probably was something that kind of, just was in my way in order to grow in the social field. And so this was a lesson that I had to learn during that process. And I think probably it can apply to other men too. But I think it's just about um, looking at these different areas and clarifying for yourself which is the area that I need to work on.
Yeah, I think you really hit on a note when you talk about just men not learning to tap into our emotions and be able to communicate how we're feeling. Oftentimes, as you go back into our lives, you will find that as a child, we weren't allowed to show emotions or even develop the language to communicate how we feel well. And I think as we grow older, if those areas aren't developed or, if we don't learn more about that, then we will see that we find ourselves having issues in those areas, especially when we get married and, the wives are asking, how are you doing? How are you feeling? All these things. And you're like, you're giving some one answer question and it's just not enough because I think women in general um, have had the liberty to develop that language to describe how they feel, while maybe not all men, but most of us don't often get that kind of training and exposure and freedom to do that as kids. And so I find it's an area that most guys are wanting to learn more about today and to kind of have that shift in our relationships to do better, whether we're married or not. In your profession as a medical doctor, do you find is there any kind of observation that you think there are other things men could do to help us grow in these areas or address some of these issues?
Yeah, as a doctor, I regularly meet male patients who have been sent to me from their spouse or partners. In order to talk to me about their health issues. But they wouldn't do it just by themselves. It's usually their wife who tells them, you need to go to the doctor because you don't look, you're feeling well. So this is like a typical situation. And I think this is kind of symptomatic for many men. I think we tend to not to listen to ourselves clearly, because especially our body or even our mind and maybe other people are talking to us, but we kind of tend to we tend to ignore these voices a little bit because maybe it's scary, maybe we feel like we can still handle it.
Yeah.
Whatever. I think this is something that we need to learn to be aware of our own, aware of what our body tells us,
Yes.
and what our mind tells us, probably what our wife tells us too,
Yes.
because sometimes they know us better than we do.
So true.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm single, I'm not married, but this is something that I usually hear from my male patients. And I think this is something that men need to learn in general.
Wow. Well, guys, you've heard it. I think you already know it. We got to keep working on this area in our lives. What inspired you to enter the field of medicine?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, my mother is a doctor too, but when I was a kid, I asked her, "Why did you become a doctor?" And she replied, "I just wanted to help people." And to me, this was like a very dumb answer. I was like, "Who wants to help people?"
Yeah.
This um, but yeah, as I grew older, I felt like, wow, this is actually a very interesting field because you can, it's very interesting to know how our body works. And I really like those practical things, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, after I entered med school, I realized it is really, really fulfilling to help other people. And so I think I'm not sure whether I had this idea before or after I entered med school, but I think it was during that time um, that I actually figured out that my mom was right. And that is a very good motivation to, yeah, help other people because I think this is very, very important purpose in our lives, whether you're a doctor or not. But if you can help other people, you can show love to them, you can show them that they're important, and that really gives your life a purpose too, because then it's you who like take responsibility for a certain field of their lives, and this is meaningful to them. And I think this is and thank you for this question because I really want to stress out that responsibility is so important, especially for us men, that this is an attitude that we need to develop because I think manhood is basically built on responsibility. And
Yes.
I think we in our society and men in our society lack on responsibility in many different areas, whether it's relationship, whether it's like taking care of the kids, whether it's about sexuality. And there are so many fields where yeah, men are actually don't have the courage to do what is necessary to take on this responsibility.
Yeah.
And this is something that I really want to encourage everyone, every man who is listening to this podcast, to ask yourself, where is the field where I can take on responsibility? And if it's just a small thing, that's cool, that's okay. But let's start with something, and you will realize that really gives you purpose as a man, and it really will help others, yeah, to grow in their personalities. Yeah, this is actually, yeah, a big way of life.
I like how you put it. And it's one of the reasons why I'm writing the book, Awakening the Hero Within. It really helps us tap into our purpose. I think oftentimes when we lack purpose as men, it is hard to see ourselves leading and serving in different areas of life, taking on different responsibilities and roles. And I think, not for all of us, but for, I would say, quite a few of us, it is a challenge to see ourselves beyond what we're doing. And we usually identify ourselves with our jobs or our profession because it's easy to talk about what we do. And when we step outside of those fields or zones, we don't know what to do. Nobody taught us. And just finding good mentors and leaders can be difficult at times, especially if you were not raised in that kind of environment. But really understanding and finding your purpose in life, I think that it's one of the keys that unlocks the doors to many, many, many things that one needs to understand about himself and really just how God designed you to live and function. And I think every man would benefit from moving more in that direction on a journey of finding purpose because it ricochets or the ripple effects of knowing who you are and what you were created for does impact all the other areas in your life. In the book, I talk about men like King David and how he went through his journeys of valleys and hills, but through it all, he sought God for direction in
Yes.
every situation. And in the end, most of us or some of us might know his story, fell many times, but he pursued the Lord, and out of that is one of the most remembered kings because of how humble he was. He was open to share the areas that he didn't do well in, but how he got back up again and learned from his mistake. And I think it's good to hear more of those stories to encourage us when we go through our own journeys and realize that we're also making mistakes, but there are others out there who can help us. Are there any encouraging words that you'd want to speak to other guys who are going through seasons like this? You talked about just being more on the introvertish side in your earlier years, but throughout university, you sort of transformed into a different person who is more outspoken, outgoing, and taking on leadership roles. And then into the medical field, just seeing a wider understanding of serving people, taking care of them, and really just being a good support system for those who need it. What other encouraging words would you have to give, and how do you see yourself different today from what you thought of yourself before?
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say that introvert is not a bad thing. It's just some sort of character that
Yes.
is also valuable and also having like very specific strengths. And I think what I really want to encourage everyone is, or like every man, is that every man can be a leader. And even though you might not see yourself leader. And for myself, I was just being like a passive follower of, everything that I got into. But then I realized, no, it is really possible for me to become a leader when I just take on responsibility and step out of my comfort zone. And with the help of God's love and power and the help of others, I can overcome my fears and get through like challenging seasons, but growing in the leadership role and learning how to navigate challenging situations because then I know how to handle situations where I usually would be anxious or frightened and just become passive. But this is not what we're meant to be as men. We are made to lead. I think it is, I really like that you were talking about mentorship because this is something that can be really helpful in that process when you feel like I have no idea how to handle it, how to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then mentorship or just probably counseling or being or starting a coaching process can be very crucial and helpful. So I can not enough emphasize the importance of good mentors in your life. And there was also a season in my life where I was really longing for a mentor, and I was praying, but nothing happened. For some reason, another friend of me, we started like mentorship uh, mentorship group in our church. So we were looking for people who were willing to mentor for others, and then on the other hand, people who were looking for mentors. And then we kind of brought both groups together, and then something really beautiful started. And so sometimes, if things don't happen, then start and become active
That's
because
right.
you have what it takes, and God has put so many things inside of you that you can like easily access if you just ask Him and try to take the first step, and then others will follow.
So become the change that you want to see.
Yes, yes. And I think it's not only your responsibility, but also God's responsibility. And it's like He can help you in any aspect of your life. So all glory to Him because this is something very powerful and beautiful.
Wow. It's easy for us to talk about this now because you've been through some parts of your journey And like myself, I've been through other parts of my own journey. But for the man who feels stuck in his journey right now, that might think this is never going to change. This is difficult, because when you are going through those challenges, you really feel like you're climbing up a mountain and it's never going to end. Is there a specific word you would say to him if you had the opportunity to talk to that guy right now who is struggling with whether insecurity or maybe feeling a lack of purpose, or just not the kind of man who he wants to be?
Yeah. First of all, I would tell that guy, you are worthy. Never doubt that, because if you're in a situation where your self-esteem is really low, then you feel like, yeah, you're not worthy at all, and no one cares about you. But you're worthy, and if no person around you would care about you, then God at least is the one who cares about you. And the second thing that I'd like to say is try to be patient with yourself and also others, because sometimes you wish to see a change immediately, but it doesn't come, and then this can be even more disencouraging, and then you feel like, wow, it's not worth it all, I'm just gonna quit everything. But sometimes it's about perseverance, persistence, and patience. This can be hard at times, but watch out for people who can encourage you. And even if it's not a mentor, then maybe it is some member of your family or like a close friend that you have that just can cheer you on and tell you, I believe in you. Just go on and take little steps. I'm pretty sure that soon the seasons will
A
change.
door, a door will open, eh?
Oh, sorry, no, I just wanted to add that it is also a lot of very much about the thoughts that you process in your mind, and sometimes they can be very negative or destructive. And be aware of those negative thoughts and identify that beliefs that you have upon yourself. Replace them with the idea that God has about yourself. In Psalms 139, says many beautiful things about you, and I encourage you to read this passage and just speak those words over yourself, like God is speaking them to you. You can also speak them over your own life. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that
That's right.
this will also have an effect.
I would absolutely agree with Psalm 139. It's a beautiful psalm with lots of affirming words, just how much the Lord thinks about us. I'll throw in one last thing here. It's sometimes just a test in the waters where you step out into a new group, whether it's a hiking group or a jogging or cycling group. Try something new and step a little bit outside of the circle of friends or environments that you're used to being in, and just see what might happen. It might not work right away, but don't be afraid of trying something new. And I think to the guy who is listening to this podcast, I'm sure a door will open where you begin to see new things happening in your life and that kind of transformation. So I hope this was a blessing to someone who was listening today. Konrad, it was an honor having you here on The Climb. Really appreciate the work that you're doing and just the way how you've been serving others. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me here on the podcast. It was a really good time talking to you, as usual. And I hope you're encouraged and blessed. Thank you so much, Teko.
As they would say in Germany, Gute Nacht. Gute Nacht.
Gute Nacht.